Lightstorm home, and you're sitting in a screening room that's on a stage, because this is a studio, but we knew that we needed a screening room, and we built one that's a working screening room for us, where Jim and I and others would come into this room, and we'd do reviews with Weta, where we'd be able to project and have them linked in remotely, and done a tremendous amount of stuff here. But we're here to talk about Avatar: Way of Water, but it really begins back with the first Avatar that Jim actually wrote in 1994-95. And at the time, we knew the technology did not exist to make the movie the way we wanted to make it. And when I say that to people, sometimes they get confused and they think I'm talking about 3D. 3D had nothing to do with it. For us, it was about putting up emotive and engaging characters up on the screen to tell the story, and that's what didn't exist. In 2005, we started to think. I went to Jim. I said, Jim, I think we're at a point where we can be the impetus to push technology to allow us to finally tell the story of this movie. And on 5/5/05, we started 5 artists. And we also started exploring, how do we create a production paradigm that would allow Jim Cameron to work with actors with the same intimacy that he worked with Kate and Leo, or Arnold and Jamie Lee on a live action set, work with them in a world that we weren't going to create. We couldn't build Pandora. We couldn't create that. And we came up with what we called virtual production. And virtual production allows Jim to capture the performances of the actors. And it allows him to put virtual cameras, which you're going to see later on them. And that's really what opened the door for us to finally be able to tell the story that Jim wrote. But movies aren't about technology. They are about the story in the script. And it all starts with that. When we started talking about making sequels, it was, what stories do we want to tell? It wasn't, let's go make a sequel. It was, what are the other stories that are worth telling? Stories that could come to their own emotional resolution, their own story conclusion. And that's how we ended up with the 4 sequels, Avatar: Way of Water, which we've already done, to present to audience. Each one we want to have as a standalone film. We are very excited that we're back in an era where we have a window in time where we can do a proper home entertainment release. And when I say that, I'm meaning an opportunity to really include the added value content that audiences around the world want to experience. As you know, we have over 3 hours of that material with what we're including, and it's a whole gamut of stuff. What I want to share with you today is a series of pods, I call them, for something we created called Inside Pandora's Box. And it's really a behind-the-scenes look. And each one of these are dedicated very specifically to a different area of the production. And hopefully there's something there, for everyone in what we're going to show. It starts, though, with world building. We have to build the world. So this first pod is about building the world of Avatar. Take a look. So we basically, and when I say all, there's little pieces of action we still need to pick up. So I don't want you to hear like, oh, they went back and did some performance capture and John misled me. We did 95% of movies 2, 3, and the first act of part 4. Now, why the first act only? Because in our narrative, there's a big time jump there, and we needed to do all the kids while they were this age, because we can't suddenly have them be older when concurrently in our narrative. So we went out and did that all collectively, and if we went into a set that had scenes from all 3 movies, we shot that out at one time. So, other questions? Yeah.
So it seems like there were so many decisions that went into creating the final product, from the script to the VFX. What were some of the toughest decisions that were made when deciding how to whittle it down to final product?
First of all, it's a script. the toughest decision is the script and what story do you want to hone in on. We recently released through Dark Horse Comics a story that was once Jim thought maybe could be Avatar 2, but it wasn't. That whole story went to the wayside. Then the next hardest thing is when you look at a cut of a movie and every scene works in your mind, but it might be a case where the sum of the whole is not greater than the parts. What do you give up? What are the where can you give up something where it's sort of like the phantom limb syndrome. We might know it's gone, but if somebody is watching the movie, they don't know that beat is missing or that moment is missing. So, I think that's the toughest part, is saying, okay, we have this, and boy, the cast is great in that, and it looks great, and trying to do it, we don't wait till we have a finished product. We try and do that before Weta starts to do some of the work on it. So it's giving up your babies, because each scene is like Jim's baby. I think that becomes the other tough challenge. Yeah.
How much did you actually cut out? I mean, we have this 3-hour movie. So in general, what would you estimate?
Look, we every movie, when Jim shoots a movie, first time we did Titanic and screened Titanic, it was a half hour longer than it was. So but the best news we got when we previewed Titanic was where people felt it was too long was during the sinking, which told us that the character story was working. So that's something that we took away and we learned from and said, okay, now as we're doing these movies, so you do a battle sequence at the end. I wouldn't be surprised if our battle sequence at one point was 50% longer than it ended up being in the movie. So we said, what beats are narratively telling, not just what's cool, what tells a story beat. And if it's servicing a story and advancing the narrative, we want to keep it in. So, yeah.
I have a question about the patents for the film and technology. What did you find most impressive?
Number one, from a patent standpoint, we tend not to patent anything. We feel if we come up with a tool, we want it to be ubiquitous and let it go into the hands of other filmmakers so that the technology continues to advance. The one thing that we do, technically own is the system for the performance capture, because someone else developed it and they were going out of business. So we bought that software from them for the ownership of it. It's interesting when you're at the facial performance is the big key, but something that I think is a tool that I think almost not every movie needs performance capture. But we have another one of our pods. We call it, I think we nicknamed it, I'm not sure what the final name was, Spider's Web. And it was about filming Spider on the live action sets. And we do something that's called real-time depth compositing. So when the camera operator holds up a camera on a real set like this room and looks at you, through the eyepiece of the camera, we are able to see the CG elements that aren't really there. And we're not able to do it just like a weatherman standing in front of a screen. We're able to do it where that CG character can walk in front of you, walk behind you, and that's what we call real-time depth compositing. And because we're in a visual medium, and if we didn't know what was there, we'd probably do a lock-off camera, because we don't know it, so we're allowing for the headroom of the Navi. Here, we could handhold the camera, tilt up to see the Navi, pan over here, because we're seeing it in real time. And not only do we see it in real time, but it goes into the editing workflow that way. And the editors get to work with it right away. So that, to me, in terms of what we've done, that could have that other filmmakers should look to use, because almost every movie now somehow uses a green screen or does something, or has a CG character in it. Now you can see it right there in the moment. Yes?
You mentioned going back to the originals on the 1, the 2, and being ubiquitous. Would it be fair to say we expect to see Jake when he was walking, when he had legs, before he wasn't so Sigourney or kids?
I don't think I would assume that, as because these movies right now in this block, it is a progression. I think the idea that we want to continue to tell stories in this world and this universe I think that's a likely opportunity, whether it's in a novel, whether it's in a graphic novel. But that story and Sigourney's arrival on the planet, spiders, Spider to me is like a little Johnny Quest, if people remember Johnny Quest. So I think there are lots of different opportunities that we, with our partners, want to explore. And the way we look at partners is we want what I consider like Olympic class partners. We don't want to be everywhere. We want to have the right partners. And then we want to entrust them with the expertise in their field and us with the stewardship over the canon of our world. So, yeah.
Along with the world building and story, one of the most compelling parts about the first Avatar was James Horner's score, and of course, unfortunately, his untimely death. How did you go about finding Simon, who could also build upon what James laid out?
No, you named one of our big challenges.
Yeah.
We talked. Jim and I talked a lot about different composers, and it was really important for us not to walk away from the texture and fabric that James Horner had created.
You can hear it.
And there were composers who are great, but we were worried that they wouldn't allow James into their imprint, and they would want their imprint on it. Simon, we knew he was a part of Titanic, he was a part of Avatar, and more importantly, he was a part of Pandora, the world of Avatar down in Disneyland, where James passed while we were working that, and he finished the score there for the attraction, for the land, and we saw how he was able to breathe in his own sensibility, not losing Horner's undertones, and create something that was emotional. The score to me is the heartbeat of a movie, and Simon tackled that. He was willing, to do that, and he really, embraced that, and he was great to work with. And I think that hopefully people feel the score of this is consistent. And if you didn't know James wasn't with us, you could look at the two movies and go, those scores felt of one style, one feel. So, wait, I already.
I'm a big physical media fan, so I was wondering if there was any plans for 4K down the line of both the Avatar films, and is there any effort in streaming or any future releases to try and preserve, any of the 3D or variable frame rate aspects of the theatrical experience?
So, trying to figure out what I'm allowed to say here. Yes. No, but yes, look, 4K is something we love. We think it's great, and more and more people at home can do it. We would love to offer that. I think down the road we would love to do a 3D offering for those who want it. Down the road we'd love to do a high frame rate offering, but right now the infrastructure for that doesn't exist. 3D you can do as a standalone type of thing. So I think down the road we want to present it and offer it to people at the highest caliber. And, I should point out that we believe that more people, at the end of the day, will see this movie outside of a theater than ever saw it in a theater over the longevity of the life of the film. We go to great lengths to master every piece of content at the best level for its distribution stream. So Jim spent quite a bit of time color timing. It's not the color timing that we did for the theaters, because it's a different, what is that color timing? What is the mix? What are all those things? So that when a consumer, goes to take in the product, wherever they're taking it in, it's the best it can be in that format. So, yeah.
Since this is part of the home entertainment release, you mentioned the pods. How many total pods are there? And the home entertainment business isn't what it used to be. I mean, DVDs used to rack up more money than the theatrical release. So you're having to entice people, hey, we're going to offer you something that you didn't get theatrically, maybe. So can you talk a little bit more about the components of what you offer?
Yeah, so look, I think that number one, we would do this 10 years ago. We would offer the same content. We did it in a different format, in a different way. We had more of a documentary making of. Someone said, hey, let's do a long form documentary. We said, yeah, but if we're doing that, we're doing it only on a quarter of the experience. Let's save that for down the road. So we came up with this idea of these pods, and I believe that we have a total of at least 12 of them. Plus, we have something that goes beyond that, which is more from Pandora's box, which are shorter interstitials. That's where we put the casting auditions. That's where we put a whole piece about something we call our troupe, which is a group of actors, who do that. So it's added content, and we're going to look to continue to add more and put more and more of that together. I don't think it's we're not doing it out of I think people are going to go out, the consumer, and go out and want to experience Pandora. And I call these bonus features. I think there truly are, that no one's going to buy it because of the bonus features. They're going to buy it because of what the movie is. But when they go see, and hopefully you feel this today, go, wow, that was pretty interesting. I want to explore more. And I'm not saying you don't want to explore all 12. And we have them in an order, and you can watch them in continuity, i.e. starting with the world building, and take people sort of, on a journey that way.
Was there any concern though, because it used to be the theory, don't give away the magic. Now, especially the secrets with the bulbs on top of the water and you're telling us everything.
So my philosophy on that is you've already been to Oz. So that's why you didn't see us doing it before. We didn't come out and go, hey, in an attempt to get Sigourney nominated, let's, before the release of the movie, show all this incredible side-by-side footage, because then people are talking about the process and not the movie. But we're past that. So people have gone to Oz, and they've experienced it. Now you can see behind the curtain and get, wow, look how magical that is in this window. And once it's out there, and that's okay, because this is going to be the old story by the time the next one releases, and you're going to go back to Oz, and then we'll do it again. So yeah, now I'll come back.
Yeah, will we see any of the cut footage or deleted scenes in this home release? And if not, either way, honestly, is there a scene that was cut that you were really sad to see let go?
So the answer in this release, no, we will not see any. But hopefully down the road we'll have an opportunity to do it. We frankly didn't have time to focus on that in this window. And in terms of, there was nothing I was sad to see to go, because they all went for a reason. And I think that if we ever, so we're never going to have the director's cut. This is the cut of the movie. We just re-released, Titanic again, and people are like, oh, do a different version? No, that is the cut. And there were, but I think down the road, exposing people, maybe at various different stages of the finish, why something was trimmed, that makes it interesting. So hopefully we'll have an opportunity to do that. One more question, then we'll let you guys go to the stage.
Yeah, so that kind of bounces off that question about the deleted scenes. Was there a general criteria for scenes that weren't in the final edit? Like, was it just too long or too boring, or like what kind of made the criteria for getting cut? Story,
right? There might be a moment in a line that's confusing, where someone, where there was a moment where Quaritch said, "You help me to Spider, and I help you." People thought, "Oh, Spider's helping them." No, Spider's sort of captive of theirs, and is forced to go with them. So you take that line out. There's other scenes where they're talking about stuff that dramatically works for that scene, but you realize it's a dangling participle. It doesn't play into the rest of our story. And you go, okay, we can take that out and fill in the hole. Likewise, there might be opportunities where we go, okay, we need to add a line here. We need to add a shot here because something didn't exist and there was some gap that needed to be filled. One of Jim's greatest strengths, I think that Jim is a writer first and foremost. And I tell people he has 3 phases of writing. One is when he's writing the script. 2 is when he's working with the actors shooting the movie. It's another writing process. How are they reacting off of each other? If something's not working, he doesn't just approach it like a director. He goes, why did I write that scene in? What was the importance of that? How do we fix it? Then when we go to editing, it's the same thing. Jim looks at something and goes, as a writer, why was it there? And if someone goes to him, hey Jim, for whatever reason that scene is not working, because not every scene does, Jim doesn't say we can just take it out. Jim goes, okay, why is it there? What purpose was it serving? And if we take it out, how do we fill that same purpose so that people at the end of the movie feel what we want them to feel? So, well, thank you all for coming down to Manhattan Beach. And enjoy your visit to the stage. I know I'm going to see some of you in a little bit, so great.